Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in again to this finish up of our last lesson 6 that we were working on. I know last time I was having a little trouble with the Wi-Fi and connecting everything, but we're back and we're ready to finish up the last 3, some of the actual hands-on lessons that we were talking about with respect to setting up your Pi for the first time. So go ahead and let me just show you where we are real quick on this. Here's our lesson from last time, and the first thing I want to do is our Pi and Node-RED. Let's set up our LED lights. So I'll point you out that there is a very detailed tutorial on this, and if we click on this tutorial, it goes through what are the materials we need. Over here I've got my setup just that exact same way, and let's go ahead and take these things out and get set up. But first, so you know, there is a Pi sitting right here next to me, and the Pi is right over here. It's all hooked up, but I've done the trick with VNC so I can share my screen that you can see functioning there. So here we are. This is what the screen looks like, and I'll close up this guy real quick, and I've just powered on my Pi for the first time, and you should see something that looks kind of like this. It says, hey, welcome to the Raspberry Pi desktop. Before you start, there's a few things to get set up. So where are you? We're in the United States, Honolulu, and it should notice that you're here when you get set up the first time. It says, yep, we're ready to go, and we're done. So your Pi is set up. Again, we want to turn on Node-RED. So if I click Node-RED right here, it starts running Node-RED at the background, and we'll know it's ready to go when this little thing at the bottom says done. Maybe there it goes. There's something that will tell me it's ready. Maybe it says started flows already. I'm done. I'm ready to go. I'm now going to open up a browser, and just so you guys know, I made sure to connect to Wi-Fi over here, and I'm on the same Wi-Fi as my computer is so that I'm able to share this. And there comes up our default things, our default browsers we've got there. If I click on Node-RED, I come up with the address of or what's running in the background. There's a little bit of a lag here because I think I'm going all the way through somewhere. But basically I have an empty flow, as we mentioned. This is the actual screen. This is the actual address of, or what you're seeing here. Remember, this is what's actually part of the Raspberry Pi thing. But if I wanted to just get to this flow remotely, I could type it into a browser, type the address into a browser and get into it this way. But let me jump back to the tutorial that I had right here and say, let's pull out these pieces of equipment. We're going to start with the little RGB LED light and some jumper wires. And here I've got them on my bag. This is brand new kit, so the LED light and the jumper wires are here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what things look like. Hopefully that gets a little bit better. Okay. We'll go ahead and unplug. Here it is. There's the little RG and B and ground, and here's 4 wires that happen to all be put together. Now it's convenient if ground happens to be black, or red happens to be red, green happens to be green, but if that doesn't happen, it's okay. So the easiest thing to do is to just hold this set of wires flat and hold these pins flat like so, and notice that they can just push right into here just like so. And each of them just kind of goes in. Make sure that you don't force it to the point where you bend the wires, but when they fit, they fit. Okay, so I know blue is the equivalent for ground. And so I'm going to keep blue, and I'll make things zoom in just a little bit more here so you can see, right? All right, if I read right here, I've got this one right here, it says ground. So I'm going to go ahead and take my blue and I'll plug it right into the ground. Okay, and according to what we saw on our last thing, this first pin right here, that 3.3, it is an always on pin. That means if I want to test whether or not one of these colors comes out when I just plug it in, I can take any one of these three colors. This one right here, the one that says R next to it, is attached to the orange. So if I take this orange one and I bring it over and plug it into the always on 3.3 volts, yep, look, red comes out. Okay, I don't know if you can see red. If I take it, same pin, and I switch it on to another one, I'll find now it's blue. Okay, switch on to another one, now I'll find it's green. So that is the cool part. It's just like a battery. We're plugging it into any which one. And what's nice is that we don't need a resistor here because the resistor is built into this LED thing. As I scroll up to our instructions here, just so that it's clear for everybody, notice that the ground goes to ground and the R goes to, for the purpose of this tutorial, we've put the B going to pin number 26, the G going to pin number 19, and the R going to pin 13. So as long as you keep them organized, then it's not too hard. Go ahead, and B is green, so I'll put B on green, 26. And I'll put my next one as the yellow. And goes to right there, and I'll put my next one on. It goes on right there. Okay. So now notice these guys are plugged in. No lights turning on. We're going to have to do some programming in order to get those lights to turn on. So here comes our powerful thing. So we're just going to set this aside. We know it's been wired up correctly, and now let's jump over to our our flow viewer. And I'm going to kind of set things up here so that I can see both of these at the same time. The first thing I'm going to put is an inject node, and an inject node tells us, hey, this whatever will do something. And I'm going to put two of them, one right below here. One is going to become my on button, and the other is going to be my off button. Right? Now, it says timestamp right here. If I click this little timestamp, I'll get an information about what time it is. So, oh, remember, we always, before we do anything, we have to put deploy. So now it's been deployed, it's turned on. If I click give me a timestamp, then I think, where's my debug? Well, I guess I have to put a debug node in there. I'm going on a tangent. I'm going to put a I'm going to put my light bulb in there so we can make sure we get this one working. I'm going to come down to output. And if this is a lot of scrolling for you, everything that's a category, you can just turn it sideways and it'll turn off, or it'll become smaller. So there is a category right here, Raspberry Pi, and the one we're going to want, or we want, is this one, RPi GPIO out. because thinking about it, my light bulb is an out button. And this timestamp and this one are going to come and connect over like this. So far, nothing we've done is too much. This is like I push here and my pin should turn on, and I push here and my pin should turn off. That's what I want things to change into. Now I'm going to come back to this screen, so I scroll down a little bit and say, all right, I'm setting up my out node. And if I'm setting up my out node, then that means this first one, since that's the red one, let's see, the red one is the red one is the top one, so that means it's pin. It's the pin right here on top. It looks like it's GPIO 13. I put this one on, and it says digital output. So I'm going to go back to my thing. If I double click this pin, I need to tell it which pin it is. I'm going to tell it we are pin 13. It's a digital output, and I think that's it. We'll say done. Pin 33. Oh, I guess I could change it so that it doesn't say pin 33. It says red. I'll double click on that. Let's see, somewhere in here there's an opportunity for me to change the name of it. Red. Now I'll say done. Okay, and now if we come down and say, all right, let's edit our inject node, my payload is either going to be a 1 or a 0, and if it's a 0, then it's the off button. If it's the 1, then it's the on button. So that's what I'll do now. I'll go ahead and change my off to 0 and my on to a 1. Okay, so this first one, the payload, is going to be a number, and it's going to be a 1, and this one is the on button, and I think that's all I have to do. And this one is going to be the off button. I'm going to change it to a string, or to a number. And remember, this one's going to be a 0. And I'm going to change this one to off and say done. Okay, let's see how this go. Looks like on, off, they're connected. And if I go deploy over here, then we'll find out if this works. So now let me show you the little thing down here. It looks like the red button is live. If I click the off button, it turns off. If I click the on button, it turns on. I can't do a picture within a picture down there, huh? There it is. There's our red. And let me turn it on. Okay, on and off. On and off. All right, very cool. That is the simplest form of making it work. So look, every time I hit off, it goes to 0. Every time I hit on, it says a 1. Everything seems to be working right now. The only thing I want to change is I want one so that now it can be a green or a blue. And I'm going to show you a little trick here that you guys will enjoy using. This trick is the copy paste command. So if I drag a box right here like that, I copy that entire thing. See how it's all selected? Now I'm going to go Command C to copy it, or whatever yours is for a computer, and then I'll go Command V to paste it. See, did that work? Well, copy, Control-C, Command V. Oh man, my copy paste didn't work.
Maybe you should try it on.
Oh, yeah, maybe I have to try. It's because I'm running it through a computer. Now I'll try it on here. Okay, and I'll right click. No, that didn't work. Since I'm using my mouse, Control-C. Oh, there we go. 3 nodes copied. Now click somewhere else, Control V. There we go. Beautiful. All right. So the only thing I'm going to change on this one is instead of being red, I want to change this one to be my middle color, which is going to be green. I'll change the pin as well. My pin is now there we go, like that. It's pin 35, and I'll call this one green. Okay, and now, boy, I think I still have it in my clipboard. If I come down here and I go Control V again, oh yes, I pasted one more. That's an easy way of doing it. There you go, double click on this one, and the very last one, put it onto pin GPIO 26. Okay, and I'm going to change this one to blue. Say done. Okay, make sure I did that one the right way. This one is pin 35. Okay, so done. All three of these guys are all done correctly. Now I'll hit deploy. And let's see, here comes the big magic moment. I get this weird color. I don't know if you can see it right there. It's weird color, but if I click off for this one, that one says it's staying 0. This one is off, so now all I have left is a red. If this one is clicked, now it's all of them are off. This one gets clicked, now I've got that one on. Red plus blue, what does that make? Or green plus blue. Oh, make something interesting. I don't know what that is. Okay, now I have just blue. So there's our first challenge goal. Obviously, we've just built our own method for having an input that is your keyboard, your output, which is the LED light. That's the beginning project. The next project is let's go back and look real quick at what I had next on our agenda. So you've done this one successfully, and now now everything's done, and I'm going to come back and say, all right, let's look on our next pin. Now we're going to now let's put a button in here. Oh boy, this is exciting. So a button means that you don't have to use a keyboard to make your button work. We're going to look for one of these things. This is a button, and of course you're going to need a few jumper wires, and we're going to find that we're going to use one pin that goes to ground, or one wire that will go to the ground feature, and another one that goes to VCC. And VCC means leave it so that it's always on. Essentially what this guy does is it keeps background power, and every time you push a button, that wire connects to one of the pins that you've got. There we go. So let's go ahead and see if we can do this. I think we can go ahead and leave everything set up. If I've already got a pin on this ground, if I already have a wire hooked up to ground here, I can just find a different ground somewhere else so that my wire and my button can be part of it. Because it is kind of fun to have a pin as part of it. So I'm going to jump over to my screen. Let me look for my button. Okay, here we go. Comes in this nice foil packet here. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to need some wires that are female to female wires. So I'm looking for an ending like this and an ending like this. So any 3 wires will work. I'll take those 3, I'll peel them off, and in the same fashion we did before, simply push those wires into that little spot. There we go. Okay. Now the big key that you're going to remind your students of, if it's ground, that means it has to go to ground. So in this scenario, ground is orange. So I'm going to take that orange, and I'll find somewhere on here that already has a ground on it. Oh, look, there's one right there. Pin 14 says it's ground, so I'm going to take 14 and I'm going to put it right in there. Now notice I still have the other buttons plugged in from last time. VCC, that's my top one. VCC is a brownish color for me. Let me grab that one. That one goes to an always on 5 volts. Plug it right in up there. And then my last one, just like it said in that little tutorial there, goes to pin 25. Okay. So I've done everything pretty much just like it is. I've still got my light bulb here. You can kind of tell what I might be thinking about doing pretty soon. Plugging in my light here so that if I push a button, then something happens. Right now nothing is happening when I push a button, but soon if I push this button, I bet I can wire them in together and I have the basics of an alarm or the basics of something. So let's go back to my computer and here we go. So this flow right here, all 3 of these guys are turned on. I can turn them off and I can start a new flow over here if I want to. I can hit this little button for new and I can start doing my new work over here. That's one option. The other option is I can just know that those 3 buttons over here aren't doing anything, and if I want to scroll down right below here, I can just start by adding my stuff right there. So in our old scenario, we had an inject node that came from our computer, and then we brought it over to the Raspberry Pi. Here we can do the opposite. We can take an input from the Raspberry Pi right here and have it go to something. Let me just see what the tutorial says we're going to have it go to. A message payload. Okay, a message payload is what's a debug node. That's where it's going to say, hey, it's working. Let's go grab it. So let's go up to message payload. It's not an input. It's an output. It's a debug. Okay, there's my message payload. And of course, we're going to connect them together. We can see that that's one of my thing. Now let's go and identify. We've got pin GPIO 25, and there's a key here that says make it into a pull down resistor. And yeah, so let's just do that. We'll talk about what that means in a little bit, but right here, double click. Okay, let's say that it's pin 25, GPIO 25. It wants to know what kind of thing it is. It's a resistor. Does it have a resistor on it? Yes, and it is a pulled down resistor. Okay, and we'll just call this thing button. Awesome, and we'll say done. Okay, and then is there anything else here? The debug node can be left with its default settings. Wire the button to the debug node and deploy the flow. Let's see if this works. Here we go. Got to hit deploy. Okay, look, all of these guys are now on. That's obviously where they go for their default state. So we can see that our light bulb is turned on. So we can turn those things off in a second. But what's really going to be our tester is if I push this button, does something happen? Yes, you can see it on the screen. Right there, there's a very little number right below the button that switches from 0 to 1. Every time I push this button, it goes from 0 to 1. That means it's getting my input sent along. Now if I click,
Zero's off.
the 0's off and the 1 is on. So if I want to click on, all right, show me the information about this. Now, how do I see the debug messages? Debug message, there it is. So right here, I have like a stream of all of the messages that come out every time I do something. If I hit the trash button, then it goes to 0 so I can see it happen. Now I'll hit the button, and it gives me an instance. At this time and date, this button was pushed, and it was sent over as a 1. And then if I take it off, then it comes back to 0. So obviously we've just built the constraints that allow us to turn on and off something by pushing a button. Now the question is, if I hook this onto my, if I hook this same thing into my, well, let's see, let me just try deleting this and say that that button that's already programmed like this, now I'm gonna bring this up and plug it into my blue light, and I'm going to turn all the other ones off so that I know that they're off. Well, first I need to deploy this, because obviously we've learned that if it's deployed, then everything goes to on. So I'll deploy it. Now I've got my little light over here. Everything is that color. I'm going to turn everything off just so that I can find out if this actually works. Turn that one off, turn this one off, turn this one off. All three of them are off. Okay, if I push this button and this light turns blue, then it worked. Wow, it worked! This is so exciting! I've just figured out a way to make a button turn a light on and off. Very cool. And it could be even more complicated. We could have the blue light. Could I have one turn the blue light on and the green light on at the same time? Maybe I could. If I want to drag one more connection between this one and this one, oh wow, now I've got double going, so I'll hit debug on everything, or I'll hit deploy on everything, and I'll turn everything off. And I'll turn this one off. Okay, now if I push the on button, yes, I get a light that is that color that is between green and blue, whatever that color is. So there we go, we figured that one out. The last one I'm going to show you in just a second is let's take out the sonic sensor and we'll add that onto it. So one more output device, and we'll go back to our screen. Oh, we're already on our screen, and let's make the recipe for an even bigger alarm. Here is a piezoelectric buzzer. So same sort of thing. We've got a ground and a VCC, and then the one we're going to have to hook up to a pin. So we'll go find this device. It should be in a little bag, and then obviously you're going to need the same sort of female to female outputs there, and then we'll just pick a number, pick a different one, and we'll connect it up, and then we'll see if we can go ahead and make and somehow input our button into a piezoelectric buzzer along with a light. So when we do that, we have everything we need to go ahead and make an alarm or some kind of a warning system. So go back to my screen. I will open up the buzzer. Here's this little guy. Really cute. 1, 2, 3 colors. And oh, lucky me, for today I can use can we make that full screen with a...
No.
Okay, there's ground, and there's VCC, and now I need to look on my Pi here to find somewhere on here that can actually still be ground. Oh, there's one more ground spot right there. I'll plug that one in there. This is starting to look pretty crowded, but that's okay. And then my VCC is going to come out as a gray color. So here's gray, and I have one more pin that I can use right underneath there. Fit it right in between there. Start to see why people who do these things professionally like to solder stuff so that it's there. And then the last one, I think we used pin number 16. So that one was way down here. to spread it out a little bit. Pin 16. Okay. So I have my piezoelectric buzzer, I have my LED light, and I have my button. And now what we're going to have to do is jump back to my screen. Okay, and note here the big difference here. We're going to have to go obviously get an output pin. We're going to get it just like we got the other ones, because if we think about it, a buzzer is an output node. We're going to identify which one it is, pin 16, and then the important thing here is we'll put PWM output as part of the description there, and we'll name it. So here's our pin, and I'm going to go down to a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi air quality. Oh, look at all this exciting stuff. You guys will get to play with all this stuff. GPIO, put it right there. And I know that it was number 16, GPIO 16, and it said digital output. This is going to be PWM output. Can't remember quite what that stands for, but I bet it's something PWM. So frequency 100 Hertz. I think this is something we can play around with and vary a little bit. They tell us that it needs to be pins 22, 33, 35, and 37 pins in use. Oh, these are telling us which pins we already have in use. That's kind of convenient. I'm going to call this the buzzer.
Pulse with modulation.
Pulse with modulation. Oh, awesome. Okay, and we'll say done. So now, if I know all of these guys are on and off buttons, I can grab these two buttons right here and bring them down by going Control C and put them right down here. Control V. Okay. So if I connect these guys up, it has the on signal and the off signal. Remember, all these things was a number that said turn it on, turn it off. In order to do this or anything like this, I'll have to hit deploy. And oh wow, I can hear it. It says on, and right now it's probably getting both of those signals being sent at the same. There it is. There's our buzzer signal. It is kind of annoying. Huh. I wonder if there's any way we can change the buzzer signal. So if I want to turn it off, I just hit the off button. If I push it, I push the on button. Okay. Well, let me modify that a little bit to see if I can make it sound something different. Maybe I think it should have a different frequency. I'm going to put 50. No, I'm going to put just a different frequency, 50, and I'll say done and say deploy. Okay, and now I'll say off. Oh yeah, that sounds a little bit more lower frequency. See how the tones changed a little bit there? Now, of course, the very last thing that I wanted to test is, can I make it so that my buttons are my green and you know, my buttons the same way they hook up here. So I'm going to take this button and I'll put it right over to here and say, yes, now if I push the button, will it turn on the lights and turn on my buzzer at the same time? So I'll turn both these guys off. Well, first I have to deploy it. Okay, now I'm going to have to turn everything off, 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 and off. Okay, light is off, buzzer's off, everything is off. Can't hear anything. All I'm going to do is push the button, and I should get both a light coming on and the button making a sound. Oh, that's so exciting. There we go. Oh, do it again. Oh, somebody just came into my room. There we go. So obviously there's a lot of fun that can be had with this simple little project. And go ahead and experiment, play around. Feel free to take videos of what your students create. We have the potential for making an alarm, for making all sorts of things. So have as much fun as I'm having here. Gets a little annoying, play with the vibrations. And remember, if you want to be tuned in when these next shows come on, go ahead and hit subscribe and you'll be on for the next one. All right, thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day.